pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First thing as usual, approve the minutes. Everyone's had a chance to read them over. Don has moved.
I'll second.
Brenda second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? 4-0. Looks like on this agenda, we do appoint a commissioner as a member of the Coffee County Daycare Board of Trustees, effective immediately. I thought Cody was gonna try and remain on that.
Yeah, Cody said he would remain on the ECAM board if you wanted him to, unless one of you wants to serve. And, but he would, they told him that an actual commissioner would need to be appointed. But then then you would move to appoint Cody as whichever commissioner is appointed as the designee for the ECAM board. And then whenever you get someone to actually fill that position, then we go from there.
I thought at our last discussion, we were gonna wait and see who was appointed to Cody's spot and then see if they wanted it. Is that correct? Well, yeah, I mean,
I would think that would be probably the appropriate thing to do. We can leave Cody on there right now, just make no action and he's still on there.
right.
And see if the new member would like to do that.
That's the way I would like to leave it.
I'm with you.
So I think that's the appropriate way to stay.
We need to take no action.
Just know that, no,
Right. With that being said, we are ready for Citizen Gary Hahn.
Good morning. I'll probably make this short. I don't know how sweet. I am an elected official and a taxpayer of Coffee County. I have some concerns, major concerns and questions for the county commissioner and city attorney, which I guess is decided not to show up. First of all, am I correct to understand that we do have a policy handbook or manual for all our departments in this county? I assume that is correct. And I assume as that I know as my being an elected official, I had to take an oath when I took office to abide by that handbook and that policy, whether I think it is a good idea or not. Unfortunately, in this county, we have some department heads that think they're above doing that. And as an elected official, I'm appalled by that attitude. You are here, they are here, you are here to serve the people of this county. And if you cannot, as an elected official, take care of the policy and the manual correctly and start thinking that you're above and beyond doing that, then it's time for you to get the hell out of office. That's my belief as an elected official. If I think I'm better than what my position is, I need to get the hell out. And you have some people that think that, and that is absolutely wrong. As a taxpayer, I resent it. And I'm not the only one in this county. And the reason why I usually don't get involved. I really don't, until someone pisses me off. A couple meetings ago, I unfortunately happened to look, and the behavior of one of your head people really pissed me off.
Would you keep your language clean, please?
But,
Would you keep your language clean, please?
well,
Thank you.
I'll try my best.
That'd be good.
The trouble is, a question was here, come in, this person wanted to hire a person. And within 30 days, wanted to give them an enormous raise. A couple of you commissioners started asking questions. And those questions weren't answered. That person got upset, made the statement, I am an elected official. If it's within my budget, I can do whatever. I don't need your permission. Folks, that is dead wrong. That is ludicrous at best. Unprofessional, very unprofessional. And then have it down the line says, I have the best interest of the taxpayers. How can you honestly say that? If I was a commissioner and someone said that, the first thing, as a taxpayer, the first thing that comes to my mind, what is illegal are we doing? And who are we in cahoots with? Is that the kind of reputation that we want to put out to our taxpayers? I know with me, as an elected official, I sure don't want that. And I'm assuming, hopefully, you guys don't want that. Why do we not make our people accountable to follow the policy and the manual without any repercussions? That's something you gotta need to think about. Still comes to point. My wife and I went up to Beetle and ate dinner. And I sat down in the booth. They had these sayings on the booth. Will Rogers says one, good judgment comes from experience, and most of that comes from bad judgment. Folks, we've had a lot of bad judgments. When is it time that we get good judgment? We have some departments that are out of control. It's like a train out of control, and eventually they're going to get derailed. And who's going to be accountable? That's something you all need to think about. And in today's economy, who can say what's going to happen? We have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow with the epidemic. Everything keeps changing. But I think it's time that you, as the attorney, county attorney, and commissioners, get our people to follow the policy and the manual. And if they think they're above doing that, then they need to get the living heck out. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in here, Rick.
Greg?
Good morning.
Hi,
Thanks for
Craig.
your time today. Good morning, guys and ladies. I guess I want to start out with some positives. Again, I know Angie and Donna do a terrific job with helping us out over at the school district office when things come up, keeping us informed about meetings or tax-related stuff or assessed valuation or whatever. Health department staff, your health department staff, they are, nothing like a pandemic to think that we couldn't be even busier than we already are now. It's just amazing what everybody's going through and working on and so on and so forth. But again, health department people, Lindsay Payer, Carl Lee, Tina Withers, Katie Rich, and the others are probably missing a few, but gotten to know them by name and face quite a bit here recently, but they have been great to work with, and some other different people that we work with, obviously in the school district throughout the throughout the year. Wayne Blackburn helps us out again with different things in regards to weather-related issues and making sure that we're safe on the county roads and everything. Russell Stuckey as well helps me out with weather decisions and other health-related issues. And I will have to say too, I just applaud you guys for the work that you guys have done with the city and county bridge project. I know that's a challenge. Believe me, I understand with 5-year capital outlay plans and projects and unknowns and repairs, things can change, but I really applaud you guys for working really well together with the city on that project. Earlier, I guess, oh gosh, this past school year, I did come in and talk to you a little bit about a daycare grant, which we're working on. Unfortunately, we did not get the early childhood block grant. We did not get that. We found out that we did not receive that. They actually had more submissions money-wise than they had money to give out. Now, that does not mean that is a dead issue at all. I'm more determined, more motivated than ever because we really have a serious need for daycare in Coffee County. Health Department information survey results from 2017 shows that we have about 50% of our needs met with the daycare situation here in the county. And that's really, well, the 50% is an F in my world with schools, so that's not good. I'd love for a business owner, or I'd love for churches or somebody to take that on, to take that project on, and then we don't have to get involved with it. Well, unfortunately, it's a very difficult job with daycare. It's just hard. It's hard to make it financially unless you're running it out of your home. So if not other people, then it falls on us to make sure that we are meeting the needs of those kids and hopefully helping our kids become better prepared to enter elementary, continue on in middle and high school and do well. So again, it's not a dead issue at all. I just wanted you to know and understand. We are still planning. We are moving our central offices now down. We're doing that here. Nothing like a little rain to do that when you're trying to move, but we need the rain, so we're not complaining at all. But we are moving downtown, and we're going to continue working on possible grant scenarios, additional other grant opportunities, or foundation money or charitable contributions. If any of you know of anybody or can kind of point me in the direction or share any information, I'd be happy to visit with you guys as well. So again, just don't hesitate at all to, if you have any thoughts or any ideas. I know economic development did contribute, I think, $10,000 towards our project. We are still hoping that that's going to be, like I said, it's just going to take us a little longer. That getting that early childhood block grant would be like driving down the interstate road and you just smooth sail, and sailing would be preparing, work and construction. Well, since we didn't get it, we kind of have to go down the back roads and the dirt roads and the bumpy roads, and we're going to have to come up with some different ways to get foundation money, grant money, charitable contributions to hopefully make this happen. Let's see, new school year coming up here. We're hopeful that we're going to be able to get going here real quick. We had a special board meeting on Friday. Basically, the Board of Education, our board members wanted to voice support for administrators and the health department, saying, we support you, we know it's time to move forward, it's time to get back going to school, and so we need to look at making a plan happen. We have been working on plans all throughout the summer, but the plans have obviously been a moving target. It's been changing, and even up to, when the plan, I think on July 16th, got approved for the navigating change document from the State Department of Education. Then just a few hours later, there was a little bit of a curveball that was thrown to us about what may happen as far as the start time for school. So having said that, and then a week later, there was another, State Board of Education vote. So just want to let you know, we have been putting together plans behind the scenes. They've been changing. We are going to get ready to have a special board meeting tonight, and we will release a lot of very specific information tonight in regards to the plan for the new school year. We also want community support. We're going to put together an advisory committee of different people all throughout the community. And unfortunately, it's kind of I want to say it's a backwards way to do it, but because of the moving target and the adjustments and the changes, we really had to put together some things in place first that were, like, for example, health-related issues. And Lindsay Payer, Carl, he helped us to put together those health guidelines for us. Then there's some things we might have missed, but at least we have the basics in place already. And then the advisory committee will help us, of course, the board meeting tonight, they'll help us put together some different things that we have in regards to health guidelines, in regards to the options that we're going to have for kids returning back to school, so on and so forth. So that's coming tonight at our special board meeting, 6 o'clock tonight. So if you want to tune in, you can tune in. you're more than welcome to do that. I think it's going to be on the Facebook or the YouTube or both on our web. Do I say with our school board meeting tonight? And again, we're going to have some information. Again, we will also those documents that we'll put together, like the health guidelines. If there are things that we need to adjust, we will adjust. If there's adjustments we need to make to the learning plans based on the advisory committee or board discussion tonight, we will adjust accordingly. As we know now in this world, it's adjustments and changes and flexibility. So we're going to do that. We want to meet all the kids' needs. It's so important. We want all of our kids back in schools. We want them to meet their needs if they cannot be in schools, if they have to be at home in an online type remote environment. We understand that. So our kids are so important to us, and it's just, and our staff as well. I mean, we've got to meet the needs of not only our students, but our staff and all of our community moving forward. So with that, I'm going to stop and see if you have any questions or any comments or anything I can share.
It's got to be a challenge for you with the controversy over the COVID, different opinions and different like that, so.
Very much so. You guys, with your leadership, you understand that. I mean, leadership is challenging at best, in the best of situations, the best of circumstances. Then you throw in a pandemic, and there are so many different opinions. So many different people have so many different opinions. We believe that we can come up with, again, our county is different than Johnson County, is different than Sedgwick County. Our county is different, so we believe we can put together a plan and work that plan and meet the needs of the kids, all kids. And again, we'll be sharing some information tonight, and we'll be looking to board approve that tonight. But like I say, it's a little different. If we had 2-3 months ahead of time to work this out, we'd have the advisory committee, we'd have them come up and work this with us. With us just getting that navigating change document July 16th, and then there being an adjustment to what the governor, decided to do, and then the state board made an adjustment off of that. It's one of those things that we just had to put together some things in place, have a little bit of a structure, and then make those adjustments as we move forward. But you're right, it's a challenge, but I think we can do what we need to do, and we're going to meet the needs of our kids, because, like I say, our kids and our staff are so important to us.
On your daycare project, Craig, what's your target dollars you feel like you need to execute the beginning of that?
Good question. And we're actually going back today, and we're going back and reviewing our finances after this meeting. That's where I'm heading to, is a meeting. Tracy Moore and I, Tracy's our board clerk and my office assistant, and we're looking over some dollars and cents of everything. We have to go back and look and readjust some numbers. We may have to adjust, like, for example, some salaries and some different things that we're looking to do. Potentially, we might, we tried to estimate a little bit high, because again, with the grant, you're not exactly sure. Don't hold me to this quote exact, but what our grant was, what we were trying to apply for with our grant for this coming, well, it would have been opening up hopefully of January of 2021, would have been about $188,000. But like I said, we estimated a little bit high. And that was a renewable grant. That early childhood block grant was renewable. Basically, you just needed to show that you're doing these things, you're meeting targets, you're meeting the needs of kids. Plus, with that grant, you had to meet those kids that were lower socioeconomic, that were needing. There were certain numbers of kids that you needed to keep in that program. Bless you. And then, so having said that, we now need to go back and we need to review. So again, $188,000 was our number. Since then, we've had some different contributions. Wolf Creek pledged $20,000 to us, economic development $10,000. There are some other local businesses and other groups that have pledged amounts of money to us as well. We received a $50,000 Jones Trust grant to create a daycare playground, and we were going to look to do that just south of the old Board of Education office now, over by where the turf playground is now for the elementary students. So we're trying to beat the bushes. That $188,000 number could probably be a little bit less. Fortunately, on the current, or the board office now, I'm gonna call it the old board office, because we're moving to the new one downtown now. The old board office, the renovations there, from what we've heard from the daycare officials, needs minimal work. The plumbing there needs to be, we need to add plumbing because we're talking small sinks and small stools for little kids. And the areas that we're gonna have little kids, we gotta have sinks and stools. So while you're doing new plumbing, you might as well redo plumbing. And that plumbing, and I think it was a 1922 building. Believe it or not, that Board of Education office, the old Board of Education office was built in 1922. It's been many different things from what I understand, the history lessons I've received over the years, but you might as well redo 1922 plumbing, because I know what 1959 plumbing looks like in our first grade renovation. It was not pretty. So I can only imagine plumbing that's another 30, 40, 50 years older. It's not going to be great. So the plumbing is going to be the big thing. And then it's paint and some cosmetic work to redo that, to be able to put that facility in place for a daycare. Then it's equipment and materials and supplies like that you would use, to educate the kids. We want in that daycare scenario, we want a play-based curriculum, an enriched curriculum with numeracy, literacy, numbers, shapes, colors, letters. Kids having the adults read to them, and just lots of lap time with kids, and just that wonderful, enriching environment that we need to create to hopefully have kids have a love for education. So, to answer your question in a long way, about 188,000 is what we were shooting for. We think we can do it for less. Other questions?
With our different school districts, is there any coordination between the administration to maybe have something similar in policies and opening up, so we don't have students transfer from one district to another because they prefer that policy over this pandemic?
Right. It's unique in the fact that, again, I agree with what you're saying. It would be nice if we could come together and have some similarities. With boards of education, though, and each local, that local governance piece that we have with school districts, there are some different people that feel differently. And so I'm very interested in connecting with Russ Ward at 245 and Corey Reese at 243. I think it would help our health department too if we had some similarities.
I think it'd be great if we could.
So the document we worked on with Lindsay and Carl, I said, please share that with 243 and 245. And if they can, again, use it however you want to adjust it, however you need to, but hopefully we have some similarities in place. And I know that was important for us, is to make sure that there were some things that the health department felt like were very important. Because again, I'm not a doctor. I don't want to play a doctor. I try, again, Dr. Shell's been great, and the health department people have been great. We really want to try to make sure that we listen to those professionals and those experts. And so I do think it could be important, and maybe, again, we're trying to put together school in a pretty quick time frame. There's a lot of meetings that are going to occur. That may be in a meeting that we might have done.
Well, you got a moving target all the time, so.
Right. I guess I'm very optimistic. I try to be a glass half full or glass completely full guy. I just believe that our trend numbers hopefully are in good shape, and our data has had some history here that we can look to do what we need to do. And again, I don't want to give you, if I give you too much information, you won't tune into our board meeting tonight. So I want you to know that we have some plans, and we're going to look to put together to try to meet all the business needs. And we would like to try to coordinate with 243 and 245 as well. Yeah. Good questions. Anything else? I also need to mention Brad and his service on our fiber board, and your continued support of our fiber board, as well as our law enforcement supports that we've had. The sheriff's deputies and law enforcement are just terrific to work with, and we greatly appreciate their service to us and our community. So.
Thank you. Just hope we can get all of our kids back in school.
Yeah.
We're going to work to do that. I agree. You guys have a good day. Thanks for your time.
Depot City Mayor Larry Bowden.
After 9:15.
Oh, yes, I saw it.
The letter on the
I'll
9th.
get there in a minute.
How are you there?
Been better, how are you?
Morning.
How are you doing?
Fine, sir, thank you.
We need the rain, didn't we? We had I sent you folks a letter a while back about I need a backhoe, our backhoe's wore out. And we would like permission to use some of our infrastructure funds, pay for a portion of replacement for the backhoe. And split the funds between the 45,800 between infrastructure funds and capital, equipment fund. And we would like your approval.
I myself wouldn't have a problem with it, based on the fact that you just actually came in and asked, so.
We have done this before a few times when people come in and ask. I mean, we don't want it to be a constant deal, but like a one-time shot.
Yeah.
We have done this because we realize cities get in bad situations, like your backhoe's gone, you need it. You need it for your sewer system. You need it for other things.
Yeah.
So I'm not opposed to it.
Okay.
And you got my go-ahead on it, Larry, that's for sure.
Okay.
Because it's being used to support your infrastructure, so to me,
Sure.
I have no problem tying.
We've had a lot of expenses on top of this year, and we usually don't have. We've had broken impellers and pickup repairs and different things. But the backhoe's the main thing, and I appreciate it. Thank you. Have a
Thanks
good
for
day.
coming in.
So Larry, you just want to use it,
Yeah.
So basically
22.5 or 23,000 is what you're wanting to use it.
Mm-hmm. Well, split between
Yeah,
45
half of that,
eight
yeah.
is the
And
total cost, yeah. Okay, thank you, folks.
Have a good day.
We need a motion to allow that.
Hey, Larry,
I just approved. I do not know. Doesn't need to be in the motion.
I don't
I mean,
necessarily
he
think
came in and
so.
asked, and we just said, yeah,
You're
sure.
not giving him anything extra, you're just
Right.
authorizing that.
I'm fine with that.
All right. Wayne here. Is that why you were at the horseshoe pitching tournament yesterday morning, because you stayed up till 4 watching the Dillon Derby?
I actually had some church commitments.
That's what I heard, went to 4 in the morning.
Biggest home.
Yeah, the COVID-19 comes out after that.
All right.
May come out very good results. Hopefully.
Yeah,
was it because there was a bunch of cars in
I guess there was like 100 entries,
115.
115.
it? Wow.
The word got out there was 200 entries, but I didn't figure it was that many.
That's
Jeremy
great.
said he left at 2 o'clock in the morning.
3,000 people was the estimate.
That's gonna make all these other counties think, why didn't we have the Derby instead of everybody else canceling it?
On his way.
He said Wayne's on his way.
anybody find the table of organization at their workstation? That's gonna be one of the items of discussion. This is the old one.
So what's changed on it? I don't.
Yeah, I should have wrote on there old. Hello?
Oh, we have a person.
Thank you.
Phil, how you doing?
Thank you.
Sure. So you want to do that today? Yeah. Thank you.
Morning. Okay. Good morning.
Morning, Wayne.
Don, you want me to start?
Yes, please.
All right. Are we above normal on the rain? Seems like it's raining about every week. Anybody wanna-
Ground indicated.
Looks like you're wet.
That I am.
A bit. Hope you get away when you leave too.
Okay. Well, we're trying to finish the landfill, so that's kind of slowing us down a little bit. So, I mean, I want the rain as well, but we can't finish our landfill sale. So what I have is no road permits, 5 zoning permits.
Question, Wayne, on zoning permit,
Yes.
the tower at 650 Caper Lane.
Mhm.
I read that and it says, co-location and installation of equipment on existing tower within existing compound, no change in height or footprint. So if they're just doing stuff inside, do they need to get a zoning permit just to change things inside of there?
We still have them, we asked them to get a zoning permit, so one is we're keeping record of what's on the tower, what's existing on the tower. I know the footprint doesn't change, but with those changes, then basically it becomes a document that stays in the file. And so should any question come up, then basically we'd have a record of what all of the application process was for that tower and the existing conditions of that tower. So that's how it's set up, or why it's put in there.
Do we charge them to get a zoning permit for that?
There is a $20 fee that still goes with that.
I see they paid it, but my thinking is they paid their fee once and all they're doing is upgrading inside of what they've already paid for. Why would we, I understand, yeah, let's have them apply for zoning permit, but let's don't charge them again for the same thing that we did before.
You can choose to do that, and that could be our practice if that's what you'd like to do.
It's just been standard to do it this way.
Yes, sir.
I do know if you add to or alter a wiring or plumbing on a house, you have to get a permit to do that. So I assume it's along the same lines.
It is. I mean, it doesn't change the footprint. I mean, obviously the footprint would say you're gonna be putting a new, zoning permit out there. But when we're talking about the footprint, we're talking about the compound area. We're talking about the tower itself and then the fence itself. So you could have a new generator that would actually add a footprint within that compound. That could be different. You could add basically, a bridge, what they call a bridge that has all the cabling within that compound. That doesn't necessarily change the footprint. But all of those things, and on this particular one, it's adding an antenna, but I believe there was some work done too. But all of those things, just kind of up to this point, has been standard. Just go ahead and have them get a permit. $20 fee, it's a minimum fee. Then we document it and we verify that there's no changes to the footprint. Should anybody ask about it, the adjoining neighbors, zoning and otherwise, then we have a document that, okay, their application only did this. And then that's where we're at. Once again, it's a minimum $20 fee.
And I realize $20 is only $20, but at the same time, I think we just keep tipping the people for anything and everything all the time. They paid it once, they abide by the rules, they come in, they applied for it. I just don't feel like we should keep charging people over and over for the same things.
There is a resolution, basically that gives us fee schedules of what's to be charged. And so if you're wanting to change it, there is that resolution that you can go through the process and make that statement in there that, footprints on cell towers not to be, charged. You could definitely put that in there, or anything else that you may find that you'd like to change. But that would be the avenue that I would ask, that if you'd like us to change what we're doing, is use that as an opportunity to change our fee schedules.
For me, I go back to, in any city, if you alter or add to plumbing or electrical, there is a permit you have to apply for, and there is a fee come with it. So I'm assuming this is along the same line.
I might say that at the last zoning meeting, fees were quickly reviewed by the board, and I was just there listening, but it seemed as though our fees were extremely cheap compared to our neighboring counties. For example, I know some of the fees we were charging $20 for, the neighboring counties were charging $100 for that same fee. And I'm just throwing that out there for your consideration.
I guess I wouldn't be opposed to altering it. I guess we'd have to find out that
We could bring in,
documentation that shows that there's standard procedure to even get it changed.
I can bring in the resolution next week on zoning, and we can bring in the information that Heidi has collected as far as other counties. But you will find from that conversation too, from that last meeting, you will find a substantial difference in what we pay versus other counties. There's a lot of folks, are benefiting because of our lower fees associated with it. But
I think the board made the decision that unless we demanded it, they'd like to leave the fees where they were.
Okay.
But if you'd like me to bring it in and give you something to look at, I'd be glad to.
No, that's all right. I'm probably the only one that has a problem with it, so don't worry about it.
Okay. Now, there was at least one cell tower, I believe, that was an existing one that was still in an extraterritorial jurisdiction. I believe it was up in the Lebo area. Neither here nor there, you wouldn't have it basically in this report. But they were just updating. They were updating their towers. The next one would be the, for mine is the table organization chart. And so what you're going to find is there's going to be two motions, one for the table organization chart, and then the other one is basically the Liebman. And if I may, I'll go into that and start that discussion. I'll give you this payroll notification here in just a minute. But I can go ahead and give you a copy of the, we only have one at this point. I apologize, Donna, make it extra. Our table organization chart.
Is it different?
This is the new one.
Is it different?
Just slightly, but the numbers are still the same. We still only have 52 employees. But what you're going to find.
Let's just make sure everybody's got it. Thank you.
So what we're gonna find on this, the discussion point, is, Dale Gifford is currently, he was the leadman of the structure group in, 2019, April of 2019. He was the leadman in that group previously from 2008. So from 2008 to April of 2019, he was leadman in the structure group. And then a request came in, the position was open, and then a driver, he took the position of driver. We have yet to fill that position. We had that position open. Now the leadman we did not have open. We had changed it from a leadman just to a tradesman. But the thing is that we were not able to fill the tradesman position up to this point. So we had a request to say that, you know, there's an individual that's well qualified and definitely welcome to be back in that group. I mean, it would be very beneficial for us to have somebody with that experience and having already previously been in that group to come back to that group. But he would be coming back as a leadman. Does that change the wage? You'll find in through this payroll notice, it does not change the wage. It does not change the numbers of employees that we have. If anything, it's opening up now a driver position that we would have in the department that we would have to fill. We still have an equipment operator position still left to be filled as well. So we still have 2 positions that are vacant. So at this point, that's really it. That's the gist of this. The organization chart.
So when he went from a leadman to a truck driver, his salary didn't go back to truck driving. He stayed as a leadman salary.
Yes, sir.
So he's been drawing leadman salary all along.
That's how we've been doing. That's how we've been doing it in the past for folks that basically would step down in a position. For the most part, those numbers would stay the same. There has been a few exceptions. One recent was a foreman that stepped down. Now that wage actually was dropped a little bit, but we had others that leadmans just stepped into another position and their wages were pretty much frozen at that time. His was frozen as well, but since we didn't have any change in wage, cost of living or otherwise, that number is still the same. It's not changing. It didn't change anything. So what he's coming out of as far as the truck group, he's coming in as the leadman, the same number. So it's not a change in wage and it's not a change in number of employees.
He was an MC6 when he was the leadman.
That would have been from the, yes, sir.
I mean, he's had a lot of years here now.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Does anybody want to see the new chart prior to this, or do you want to go ahead and?
I think I kind of explained that part of it anyway.
That's really it. You know, like I say, the only thing that you're gonna find change different is you're gonna find on the structure group, the leadman from the previous one. And then also a correction is because we had a double leadman on the assistant fleet, but that leadman actually moved up to foreman. And then our discussion was to put that position back as equipment operator. So we have still 1 leadman under assistant fleet, and then we have 4 equipment operators under each one. That's the only thing that you'll find changed in the organization. Thank you, Don. Sorry for the
Welcome.
inconvenience.
No problem.
Been pulling out my hair today. It's been one of those days. I know there's not much left there.
Short job.
So this is the payroll notice. As you'll see, the wage does not change. So there's 2 motions. One would be to approve the table organization chart as statements I made. And then the other one would be to approve the CP2 which would be Dale Gifford moving from driver to leadman in the structure group.
Anybody need any further explanation? We're good?
Under this new organization, and I apologize for stepping out,
You're fine.
but Gifford would be number 40, be that MC 16. Am I looking at that correctly?
Leadman would be number 35 on the foreman structure group.
Okay, all right, I see it now.
And then the only other change that I mentioned was number 41. 41 previously, that was done in February, was a leadman, because there was 2 leadmans.
But you're pulling that one out.
But he basically had moved up to foreman. That leadman moved up to foreman, so we just made him equipment operator.
So based upon the recommendation of the county engineer, move to approve the revised highway department table organization as presented July 27th, 2020. This action maintains the current number of 52 employees in the department.
I'll move. Second.
Been moved and seconded, been moved by Fred, seconded by Don. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Here's the construction zone.
Motion 2020-09, move to review and sign the CP2 to approve the position transfer for Dale Gifford from driver in the truck crew to leadman and special bridge crew within the highway department, subject to regular IPP wage classification change from NV6. Approved at $23.26 per hour to MC6 $23.36, effective 8/3/20.
Also move.
I'll second that.
Been moved by Don, seconded by Bob. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, construction zone, as you can see, we have various groups working throughout the county. Some of it is routine maintenance, some of it is site specific. Our chip seal operation is, we had chip seal here down in the Gridley area. We are over on Hammer, up to Gridley, up to 8th Road. Now, of course, we did have that bridge between 8 and 8.5 closed for a couple of days here last week as they're doing repairs on the approaches. Once the weather dries back out, we'll be back out chip sealing. And so we will continue on there. Doing sign maintenance and also mowing as well at this point. The other construction zone would be the contractors that we have in county. The contractor PBX has opened up the bridge down the Leroy area. I think it was found to be very satisfactory as far as our ride. We were working with also PBX is the general contractor, but we was working with Bettis, which is the subcontractor to PBX over on Hammer. And so we're working on those approaches here last week. That was a challenge. We're still working on it. At this point, there's still more work to be done. There's things that are accepted and there's things that are not accepted. But that's going to be an ongoing, at least this week as well, to come up with a final plan for where we're going to be at as far as getting that rideability that we're looking for. Right now, satisfaction would not necessarily be a word that I use where we're at with it. And so just to let you know that we are continuing to work on that one. Old Highway 50 on the bridge there, the overpass, railroad overpass, they are working on that. There's
That's gonna be closed, as I said here last week, for at least 3 weeks. It could be longer, but that's one of the shorter detour routes that we had for all the bridges. Also, that's gonna be the most extensive work or repairs of all the bridges as well. And so that is the last bridge of the 6 bridges. That's the last bridge that they'll be working on, in addition to possibly coming back over on Immer and doing some work.
On Immer, we're not gonna, it's not gonna be something turning into a change order, is it, or is it?
There is a change order for some additional approach work.
Yeah, I knew that, but I mean, as far as,
Well, we had the change order. We had change order 1 for basically work that we found once we removed the asphalt.
right,
Then to be able to take care of the approaches as far as rideability, there are additional excavation that we've done. It's approximately, I don't have the numbers with me and I don't have the change order, but somewhere around the $6,000 mark is what we have. And there is a little skin, what I call skin in the game. The contractor also did another 30 feet of work, which I can explain at the change order. So we extended out on the north side, just to kind of get into it a little bit more. We extended out on the north side well over 60 feet of asphalt that needed to be removed or thickened up. We also extended just a little bit from our change order number 1 because we found more failure that was occurring underneath the subgrade. And so we found that. We also, on change order number 1, change order number 2 also changes or reflects some additional work at the abutment, because we found water was actually coming back in on the abutment. So when they were excavating the subgrade, they found the water coming back into the abutment. So we had to put some filter rock in that location to be able to get drainage away from that abutment. So once you start opening up things, just like when you open up an old house, you're going to find basically more work that you weren't expecting. That's what we were finding here. So our initial change order plus somewhere around $6,000 is what we have so far. I'm still working with the contractor to find out what we can do on the bridge deck itself, as far as coming back and placing maybe some more polymer to allow a smoother rideability. But as I say, that discussion is going to be this week. I don't really have any answers at this point. I know that we're not there where we want to be, but it has been a challenge because placing all the asphalt that we had, we actually had to close it longer than we were expecting. They were putting it down on Thursday. It was still hot. They weren't even finished up until like 8 or 8:30 Thursday night. And so the asphalt was still hot. We even had a visitor come and do an extra inspection onto it, and we found tracks the next day because the asphalt was still hot and they drove on it. But with that being said, then Friday, we assessed where we were at. We took some shots of the existing approaching, and then we had the barricades moved so we could open up the road, because our main emphasis, our main focus was to try to open these bridges as soon and quickly as possible, and not to be on those detour routes. Because I know those detour routes were not basically something the local public really desired. And so we tried to do everything we could to open up the bridges and open up those routes. But you know, the thing is if we didn't do the work that we had done, you've been replacing these structures within 5 to 10 years. And so hopefully we're extending the life of them beyond that point. So, but you'll find some pictures on that. I have pictures of all the repairs on each one of these structures, and you'll be surprised at how much rebar that actually was showing, just concrete popping out and different things like that.
That bridge there, Leroy Wayne, you know, cosmetic, just by looking at it, looks fantastic. They probably, I don't know, jacked out 25% of the top, maybe 30, I'm not sure.
Seemed like quite a bit.
But just driving over it at 40 mile an hour, it is so choppy, it's unreal.
Okay.
And I know there's probably nothing to do about that, and people can put up with it, but it is extremely choppy. Evidently, when they laid the concrete back in or the polymer back in to fill up what they jacked up, they evidently didn't get it, because that bridge was totally smooth to start with. So we don't want that bridge. The overpass and Lebo, people driving 55 mile an hour, if that's got the same effect there, it won't be very pleasant. So you might, and I haven't seen John since I drove across it. You know, John, the foreman down there, was a great guy to talk to. I think they did a great job, but once it's completed, it should have been a lot smoother than what it is.
Okay.
So you might keep a close eye and make sure when they get everything filled back in, everything that didn't get them filled in is quite as smooth as they should have. So.
Okay.
Because I don't think the overlay polymer would have made it choppy like that.
It does have a little, but I've heard that comment more than once now at
Down
this
there,
point.
really choppy.
And to say that might be part of our problem, it is something that's going to have to be looked at more closely. And so that's going to be one of the objectives.
Well, in the wintertime, you know, when we got a little bit of ice or a little bit on an overpass like that, at 55, 60 mile an hour, it ain't gonna take much for them to start moving.
I would agree if you have those type of conditions. We are improving it, but there also is a high expectation for rideability.
Yeah.
It's not to make conditions worse, to make them as good or better than what they were as far as rideability, and that's what we're trying. But removing the asphalt on some of these structures has been a challenge. So the purpose of the asphalt was for leveling. I mean, that's what they had done. But if we put the hot mix asphalt back over these polymers, we'll avoid the warranty at this point.
We see the state doing this on the highway. I'm not sure Tom did mention it last week. How come we just can't go in and level and grind little humps and little stuff on these bridges? How come we can't? I mean, it seems to me we ought to be able to do that
Well,
without changing the structure of the bridge whatsoever, because I'm not talking about taking this much, I'm talking about taking this much off in some places, and other places you're not taking any off.
to kind of go over the processes, what they have done is you take an existing structure, an old structure such as this, and so you mill off the asphalt that's on top of it. Some of the millings of the asphalt is they also get some of the soft portion of the concrete of the bridge deck. So you can actually see where they dig in a little bit on the bridge deck when they do the milling. So they have that process going on. Then they come in and they chain drag and try to find basically the weak areas of the concrete.
Yeah.
They pop it out, or actually they saw it. They saw the configuration.
Yeah, but isn't there some way to control the profile? I mean, when they do these polymer overlays, I mean, again, we've been through the chain drag, find the voids and all that.
Yeah.
We're leading up to, yeah, they put asphalt in to give better rideability, but when we're spending several $1,000s on a polymer overlay, is there not a way to check that profile, whether it be a rolling straight edge or anything? I know too short for a file graph, but I know there's a rolling straight edge. There's other techniques available to make sure that we're not creating a worse situation than what we had.
When we
As far
pour
as rideability.
a concrete deck for a bridge, we have basically a machine that travels on a profile basically of chairs and rails, as you know.
Yeah.
But after they've done the concrete patch, then the next thing that they do is they have a machine that's mixing the polymer, two agents together. One's the hardener, the other is the polymer itself, basically get it to start drying and curing. And then they also spray an aggregate on top of it. So when they spray this, I wish I had some pictures, but it comes out of a hose, and think of a water hose that only has half the pressure. It looks like just a little stream, less than a 1/4 inch type stream just out there.
Yeah, it's just a seal coat, basically.
Just a seal coat.
But so
So
before you do the seal coat, you have all this patchwork you're doing.
Yeah.
That could be checked somehow for profile.
that would be something that could be done.
Before you put the polymer on,
That's come we didn't check it before, put the polymer on to make
Yeah.
sure we got something.
The The concrete for what they do there is what you'd have a straight edge that you would screed across over the concrete.
Mhm.
Okay. I have not seen the end results there at this point, so that would be something I'm gonna be
We
looking
have
at.
an inspection team on board when they,
Yes,
before they put the polymer on.
yes,
So who is that inspection team?
BG Consultants at this point.
So they do not standard procedure for them to check the profile of that bridge,
It
see
was,
whether it's been altered dramatically or is it in, up to standard, for lack of better terminology.
at this point, I think the best thing would be with our discussion and with the discussion we've had on the profiles, is allow me an opportunity to revisit this with our inspection team and see if there's things that we can improve on. There's, needless to say, that
I
the
think Don's right,
you were at.
Don's right. I mean, if we keep getting phone calls and are we spending good money after bad to do that, hell, it'd be better to
well, that's,
replace the bridge as opposed to winding up with a
I would,
catapult.
that's not what we're wanting.
Yeah.
But allow me the opportunity to revisit that with our inspection team. Is there a process after the fact that actually does a diamond grinding over a concrete bridge? It can be done. It's an additional cost to do that type of profile diamond grinding.
So it wasn't in the spec to create a decent profile on the bridge? I mean, is that not standard procedure, or is that something we should ask for?
There is a profile on the bridge that basically reflects what the existing surfaces were. Can they meet it or not with that 1/4 inch polymer overlay? That's a question. I think the biggest thing what you have is you have two elements that basically exist. One, does that concrete patch become a problem because it is slightly above what the concrete deck is? Okay,
I think that's what I'm hearing is what's going
And
on.
that's what it appears to be there.
so
Patch ground off.
then if that's the case, then the polymer is only really laying over it. As you say, it's a seal coat for the most part. You can pour it a little bit thick, and it can fill in voids or low areas. But it's really dependent upon the person that's on the squeegee that's pulling the polymer across. Because what they can do there is they can pull it, or they can basically allow it to even out and not pull it then at that point. So you have those type of things that exist. I'd hate to think that we're leaving those patches up, but as I say, unless I have an opportunity to investigate that with our inspection team, I hate to basically say that we have a problem there. One of the things that you're also looking at too is when you're looking at the profile of the bridge, okay? The only profile that we had of the bridge was pre-existing repairs. And so that would have been the asphalt surface. The only true profile that you have of the bridge is Old Highway 50. That's the only one that didn't have a surface onto it. So the existing surface was not discovered until you actually removed the asphalt. So you really don't know where your profile is at onto it at that point until you remove it to have the true profile. So if you profile prior to, which we do have on the plans, how can you determine if that bridge, say if that bridge was a 1/2 inch deeper, something like that, say a 1/2 inch deeper, and when your profile, how do you fill that up? I mean, that's the question. How do you fill it up? You don't.
I think the whole key is, we can discuss this forever. I think the whole key is that we, the people out here, are used to those bridges being nice and smooth. We go in and spend thousands of dollars working on them, and now the bridges are worse than they were. Those people, they don't care about how bad the bridge was or that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
All they care about that rideability. And we're hearing the rideability is not good. So we need to figure out how we're gonna make that rideability good, because that's what the people out there see, and it's what they want. So I don't know what the answer is. Take a look at it.
Yeah, you're right. Let me take a look at it and see if I can get to something back.
I know when I wasn't there when they laid the polymer down, but I know John explained to me how it was gonna work. You know, it's gonna squeegee you. And I assume when it's gonna squeegee it, you know, it'd be, you know, fairly level. So I think you need to check into it and evaluate what we really got, and you know, visually it looks perfect. Just across the top. I mean, it couldn't look any better, but it is. If all the others are like that, it's really, really choppy. And I sure don't want that overpass and leave choppy, because it's gonna freeze ice real quick on it. Just give vehicles an opportunity to slide.
I agree.
Yeah, if you could take a look into that, that'd be great.
All right, that's all I have at this point. Does you have any questions? All right, thank you.
Thanks, Wayne.
Take a short break and come back to,
How are we doing? Yes, I do have. I do have them. I don't know if I have them all with me. But, actually, we had just revised one.
It's usually, do those things and they don't get all this.
Let me get you the full one, or
Yeah.
get Angie the full one.
Mail it to us.
Okay.
Am I correct?
No, we're both home, because I mean, all we can do is just hang out in the hotel and be there in case Steve needs something. So, like I said, we stayed Wednesday. Just got up Thursday, came home. But we made sure Steve had everything he needed.
So did you get to see them?
See Steve? Yeah, we took him out for supper.
Okay.
Nice. She was glad. Today is the 27th. Okay. And then you saw the tropical storm Hannah turned into a hurricane. I sent that to her. I said, there you
Yeah, I guess, oh, it's got one, around.
go. Hurricane Hannah was in Texas. Douglas was away.
Okay. So there were two.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, they don't release them anytime soon. So the flooding people.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's it.
In case.
Here. Yes. Oh, I'm not used to doing that part. Everybody in good shape? Well, I guess, Phil, if you're ready,
Okay, just a second.
whenever you're ready. Sorry, we're running a little bit behind. Not horribly, though.
Thank you, sir.
To go through the audit report first. A lot of the numbers you see in the audit report, we're gonna see in the budget right after this, but go through the report. Page 1, 2, and 3 is our opinion letter on Coffee County's audit for the year ended December 30. Your books and records and prepare your budget. It's cash receipts and all the funds. On the expenditure side, it does include payables at the end of the year. Page 4 and 5 is kind of a sideways spreadsheet, shows the funds down the left-hand side, the activity in the first 4 columns, 5 columns, I should say. That second column, if there were some expenses incurred in the prior year that got canceled, those add back. And we had 12,000 canceled encumbrances. So that column 5, if you'd have paid all your bills as of December 31, that would be the cash balances, the unencumbered cash balances remaining in the various funds. These will be the numbers we'll see in the budget. Of course, you don't pay all your bills exactly on December 31. Many of them get paid in January, so those are in the payable column in the second from the right column. And then in the right-hand column, we show what actually cash is in the bank. And down in the lower right-hand corner, tie that out in the types of accounts that it's in the order of liquidity. Of course, we confirm those balances, make sure the proper cutoff is done for audit report presentation. Page 6, beginning of the footnotes. Footnote number 1 is the longest footnote, summary of significant county policies. Let the users of your financial statements know what policies are being followed in preparation of the financial statements. I won't read through all of those. I would point out on page 8 on budgetary information, it has a calendar there, some deadlines for preparing the budget you'll be working through today. And the paragraph right under bullet point 4, the last sentence states that there were no such budget amendments for this year. Had there been any amendments of the previously published budget, we'd have to point out which funds have been amended, but in your case, none were amended last year. Page 9, footnote number 2, compliance with Kansas statutes. We just went through statement 1. Ahead of the footnotes are called statements. Behind the footnote, they're called schedules. But statement 1 showed that you're in compliance with the Kansas cash basis laws and that you did not encumber any cash balances in excess of what's available. And statement 1, which we'll see after the footnotes, is a budget actual statement, and it also shows that you're in compliance with the budget laws and that you did not overspend any budgets. Footnote number 3, talking about deposits and investments, the statutes on that goes on over to page 10. And the gist of that footnote is to make sure that you have a process in place such that you monitor your cash balances at any point during the year, such that you make sure you're adequately covered for monies that are in a financial institution. They're going to cover you with $250,000 of FDIC insurance, and then they should pledge securities that they own to the county, such that if they should fail, you can sell them at market value and restore the public's money. So we give you the numbers there as of December 31, but we look at those all during the year, and you had no violations of that statute. You were adequately covered. The banks and such do a pretty good job of self-monitoring, so that always helps us. Operating leases, if you have any operating leases that bind future commissions, we have to disclose the dollar amounts.
They're fairly small there, 6,360 for this year, and 4,240 for 2021. Footnote number 5 on the defined benefit plan, where you can write or call to get information about capers. And on the right-hand side, page 11, we point out that bottom of page 10, missed it. Contributions to the pension plan from the county last year is $717,992.07. That would be your employer's match for the caper system for your employees. On the right-hand side, the state does an actuarial study each year. You've heard about the caper system being underfunded. So they do a study every 3 years and quantify based on your employees, their pay rates, their ages, when they might be expected to retire, an assumption of what capers might get as a return on investment. And they've determined that the county's obligation for that unfunded liability at December 31, 2019 was $5,329,382. So that number is not in any of the financial statements, but users of the financial statements apparently want to know that. But, so it's disclosed there for you. Footnote number 6, basically talk about your vacation and sick leave policy. The 4 bullet points at the bottom are when we accrue a liability, recognize a liability for that. Top of page 12, we point out that there's an estimated liability for vacation pay at the end of last year of $231,015.74, and we don't accrue anything for sick leave because they don't vest in that right. If they happen to quit, they lose their sick leave. They continue to work, they get paid as you go. Footnote number 7, economic development loan program. You've got a large loan to the Coffee County Health Systems, the main one, and the balance is shown there as of December 31, 2019. Again, the receivables don't show in the financial statements anywhere, so just some disclosure of monies due to the county out there. Footnote number 8, we have to disclose how you handle your exposure to risk, and you do so mostly by purchasing various insurance policies. And then you have an employee benefits fund, and the narrative there explains that fund with some stopgap coverage. Top of page 13, talking about your municipal solid waste, landfill closure, and post-closure care costs, talking about the acreage covered, etc. Each year, we do a little agreed upon procedures landfill report. That's not ready yet. It's not completed yet because got to wait basically until June 30. And then Wayne's getting me some engineering reports on closure costs so we can finish that up. And then that'll quantify what the expected post-closure costs are out there in the future. I think last year you began funding that post-closure care fund, trying to catch up a little bit on that so it doesn't sneak up on you several years out. Economic dependency, just disclosing about the Wolf Creek Nuclear Power Plant. Evaluation of the power plant accounted for 84.15% of the county's total valuation during 2019. Footnote number 12, interfund transfers are all summarized for you. If that's of interest, you don't have to dig through all the financials. You can look at them there all in one condensed summary. And lastly, on page 14, subsequent event footnote, disclosing that you paid the airport board $406,287 for a 10% match for their airport improvement program grant. And then also this COVID-19 virus, and we could experience significant declines in overall receipts. So 2020 operations are basically unknown at this point in time. Page 15 is that budget and actual statement that I alluded to earlier. It shows that you did not overspend any of your published budgets. Page 16 through the remainder of the report are the individual funds for the county. The first column shows the 2018 activity. The second column actual shows 2019 compared to its budget by line item. Would remind you, you're not bound by line item budgets. You're only bound by the total expenditures of a budgeted fund as far as state statutes. The rest of those are for managerial purposes to make sure we properly funded your budget so it's attainable. That goes on back to page 68. On page 68, there are a host of agency funds. Of course, county collects money for many, many tax districts and distributes it out. And in your accounting system, it comes in and out. Page 70 of the right-hand column, you see some large numbers like current tax. A lot of people pay the taxes in December. Those get distributed out in January for all the taxing districts. So that number gets pretty large right there at the end of the year. And lastly, page 71, we audit and reconcile the previous year's tax roll, 18's tax roll that gets collected in 19. We show what the county clerk's assessment was levied, any supplemental adds to the tax roll or taxes abated. And then we look at the treasurer's office to see, account for all that, the net collections and the uncollected amount that is certified and on up the line to be collected. Of course, a lot of those probably have been collected since then. In the front of the report are a couple unbound letters. One of them does not, like a 2-pager, doesn't have a date at the top of it. It's what we used to call the management letter, but we needed to disclose in the very last paragraph under preparation of financial statement. Accounting standards state that the client must accept responsibility and be able to identify material misstatement when reviewing the statement, including footnotes and supplemental information. And this would include knowing if a required footnote disclosure is missing or not correctly stated. Presently, the county staff does not have the ability to process and prepare the required statements, including footnotes. So basically, we're disclosing to the users of financial statements that we helped you prepare and draft the format of the financial statements. That goes in about every audit we do, smaller entities in Southeast Kansas. So that's just mainly disclosure for outside users of financial statements that may not be familiar with Kansas statutes and regulatory basis of accounting that we use. The other one has a July 16th, 2020 date on it, which is the day we were ready to deliver the audit. Anytime after that date, it's a required letter of presentation between us as auditors and those in charge of governance, which is the full county commission here. And then the middle paragraph there on the qualitative aspects of accounting practices, we just want to let you know that no new accounting policies were adopted during the year. The application of existing policies was not changed during 2019, and we noted no transactions entered into by Coffee County for which there was a lack of authoritative guidance or consensus. All significant transactions have been recognized in the financial statement in the proper period. For example, getting all the payables at the end of the year, catching those and putting them back in 19 expenses. Difficulties encountered in performing the audit, nothing to report there. If we did have records that were not reconcilable or evasive answers to our audit inquiries or anything like that, we'd be required to report that to you in writing so you can do your oversight responsibilities. Corrected and uncorrected misstatements, that's adjusting entries, those are attached. We reported some accrued payroll at the end of the year, which is typical when maybe you pay a week before December 31, and then a week after, so there's a week payroll that's an expense in 19, so we pick that up as a payable. And that looks like about the only entry there. Disagreements with management, nothing to report there. Management representations on the top of the second page. We do attach a letter of representation that management signs and stays in our file, but basically things that you can't necessarily glean from just numbers in the financial statements. There's lots of narrative talking about maybe possible disclosures that might need to be made. So we get that before we issue the audit report. Management consultation with other independent accountants. Again, that did not occur. If it did, would probably indicate a disagreement with management, which we didn't have. But if it did, we just need to give them any facts that we have so they could render a knowledgeable opinion if it did occur. Again, that did not occur. So that's basically a quick and dirty on the audit report. Budget. Fun part. Everybody got a copy? I got mine. Start with page 2. Getting started is always a hard part. We're still under the tax lid law, so basically that means you can't levy any more dollars than you levied last year, with a few exceptions. So on page 2, top line, 28,520,300. That's what you levied a year ago. You can levy additional dollars for things like on line 4, new improvements. If it's new property, you should be able to assess tax dollars to service that property. The county clerk's office gives us the estimate for these new improvements. Obviously, the final tax roll gets set later in November, so these could change a little bit, not materially normally. If property tax increased on line 5A over 5B, which typically it does not, so that did not help you. Line 6, valuation of property that changed in use. There's some assessed valuation there that allows you to assess some more dollars. So coming down onto line 12, it shows that you can assess another $121,084, I believe, for additional new property, which theoretically doesn't raise anybody's property tax because this is the new stuff. Then you're allowed a consumer price index, and this year it's 1.8%. That varies every year. I think last year it's 1.4, I think. You can assess another 1.8% to help keep up with inflation on the cost side of the things you purchase. That's up to you. That consumer price index inflation factor, I believe, is 513,365.
Yes.
I say that because I found an error when I was sitting back there, so I changed it and got your new ones printed out. Now it's about $5,000. So there's that number. On page 2A, the second page, there's exempt functions that you can also levy dollars for. So in your case, the law enforcement portion of your budget for 2021 has shown an increase over 2020. And the part that exceeds the 1.8% already factored in is $195,099. Emergency medical did not come into play. It didn't exceed the 1.8%. So you can assess some more dollars for that if you so choose. So line 29 shows that you could levy $29,349,848. Now, if you go to the back of the audit or the budget report, and it's on page 26. That is a summary of how this is drafted and how it rolls up as of right now. On page 26, you see in the right-hand column a total mill levy of 51.356. Last year, that was 52.308. We'd be levying $29,349,848 in dollars compared to $28,523 last year. So it is more dollars, but the fact is your valuation is showing that it's increased to $571,509,037. So that was $545 million last year. So your valuations went up about 25, 30 million there. So a few more dollars divided by a higher denominator, mill levy comes out to 51.356. I tell everybody that $100,000 house valued at assessed valuation is 11%, so that equates out to $1 or $11 a year. If you increase 1 mil, that's $11 a year. Yours is showing a 1 mil decrease right now, even though there's more dollars because your valuation went up. So that's kind of the beginning and the end game, and then the process in between is to try to get you some budget numbers that your departments can live with. On page 7, which is the beginning of the general fund.
Bill, can I ask
Yeah.
a quick question? So, if I understand correctly, in just assisting with this process, I know it's not my decision, but if what we're levying this year, if we decrease the mill levy, then next year.
If you decrease the dollars, the mill levy already shows that it's decreased.
Right.
Basically, we do dollars. If you decrease the dollars, next year that's your baseline. And then you can add to it maybe these exempt functions if that comes into play, new improvements, whatever the CPI inflation index factor is next year, and I have no idea what that'll be, if any. And this year it's 1.8%. It's a fairly large number, so that does set your base year.
Right.
For going forward.
And so if they keep the mill levy as last year, as far as the taxpayer's bill goes, it'll stay the same.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah. You got more valuation already, so.
We can't keep the mill levy the same as it was a year ago.
Yeah, we can't get that
We
high.
can't go that high, so that's
Yeah.
the reason it's down to 50, down to almost 20.
Yeah, what you're looking at here is the most you can go, and it's showing about a decrease.
Okay.
So the mill levy is definitely gonna be down approximately 1%.
It's gonna be down 1 mil unless you cut some more dollars back,
Because most of our valuation increase came from the plan.
probably.
Is the information,
85% does,
Yeah.
yes.
is the information we got 6 weeks ago.
It's 85%.
And probably next year it'll come in at a lower
Most of the mill
number.
levy increase, most of the valuation increase came from the nuclear plant.
Well, right, yeah.
Yeah.
That's correct.
And next year it'll probably start decreasing, and then you see the mill levy popping up, so you start levying less dollars and try to keep it down.
But the, dollar is what,
I tell people you should look at the dollars, not the mill
that's where
levy.
the tax.
I know the paper likes the mill levy, but it's really the dollars that you're levying.
That affects the tax lid, not the.
Right.
The dollars. So, I mean, we're okay because we're actually just a little bit above on dollars, so
You're assessing more dollars, but
we're
the tax,
good to go.
mill levy
Yeah,
looks like
yeah,
it's
we're
going
giving
down.
the taxpayers a little bit of break.
Right.
At the same time, so it makes sense to me.
Down a mill, like I said, it's about $11 on a $100,000 house. Hardly noticeable to them. Okay, page 7. Page 7 is the beginning of the funds. General fund, of course, is going to be the biggest fund. What we did is got the budget template set up, and then we put in the 2019 numbers from the audit report. And if you look on page 7 at the top left-hand column, you see the general fund started out 2019 with $4,805,059. If you followed that clear to the bottom and then up to the top of this middle column, you see that it ended up last year $3,662,885. So that's the dollars of unencumbered cash we're starting out this year with. We were here a year ago, did your 2020 budget with you. You assessed so much in property tax. There's like a 1.3% delinquent rate, I think it is. So they're pretty low rate. 0.21%, yeah, 0.21%, not 1. So almost everything you assessed last year, times a little delinquency factor, is at $12,921,357. That's what we expect to come into the general fund this year. Then you'll collect some delinquent tax. Delinquent tax, we never know when you're going to collect it. It could be 3 days after somebody's delinquent. It could be a year and a half, 2 years after, but your delinquent tax percentage is pretty low. You've probably already collected most of the delinquent tax you'll collect for this year. There might be a little bit dribble in later. Motor vehicle tax down through watercraft tax. The county treasurer gives us those estimates each year. They're usually pretty close, so we continue to use the treasurer's estimates for the county there. Interest on tax last year popped up to like 97,000. It's been lower than that before, so it just kind of, I guess, depends on when people pay and how much they owe. We've been very conservative in our budget. We're using 40,000. That could come in at a higher number, which would just give you a little more cash in the general fund. It'd carry over, work its way through the budget eventually. Officers' fees, you collected a little bit more in 19 than what we're anticipating again. Donations, we usually don't budget for donations because if they do come in, they go out on the other side. So it's just an in and out type of thing. Motor vehicle operating fund, whatever's in the motor vehicle operating fund at the end of 19 comes into 2020, and that's 26,823. And then we'll cut that back to a lower number because we don't want to expect that necessarily or count on it. You never know what might not be spent out of that fund and available. We've got the wind farm pilot money coming in this year, next year. I didn't show anything last year, is that correct?
No, we should have gotten something for last year.
It may be in the, it may be in that miscellaneous number I got there then. That 169 could be something in there. I'll check into that. Interest on idle funds, look, everybody's interest in 19 was a lot higher than what it was in 18, so years going out, we're using a little bit lesser number. Page 7A is a department expenses, and then if you flip on over to page 7B, we got the detail by department. So we put in the 2020 column, what basically we had budgeted for this year in 2020 in the various departments. And then in 2021, Angie helped us with those budget requests that I think you worked through. We put those in here based on your requests. So you can kind of glance down there and see what the numbers are. Like County Commission, the budget last year on personal services was higher than it is next year. Does that sound right for some reason? Okay.
It took back the 3.5% commission.
Okay.
And then we created, I think, did you create that line item for salary adjustments or whatever?
There is somewhere probably at the end.
I asked Lori to look at that.
Yeah.
Personal services, wage increases, yeah, you have 300,000.
On page 7F, we put in a new department, wage increases, personal services, 300,000. That's your decision-making to whether to use that or not. So I don't know how much time or detail you want to spend on this. Like I said, in the middle column, we kind of put in what the budget was for last year, and then 2021, the budget requests that you approved, and those all seem to work out. If you go over to page 7D, you'll see the second department under 7D, we've got some public works equipment numbers that really nothing spoken for, but that's kind of, if you don't spend it, that ends up being your cash carryover.
Or we transfer it out.
You already transferred to reserve funds, yeah. If you look at page 7F, you'll see some capital outlay project expenditures there that was in the budget for last year and this year. Again, if those, well, the city infrastructure money you do spend usually, the other number, capital outlay, you may, if you don't spend that on capital outlay, you might shift that down to these transfers to these reserve funds, which is typically what you've done in the past. And again, the main thing is that we get a budget set that you got a total expenditure in the general fund high enough that you don't overspend the budget. We budget to spend all available funds. However, we know good and well that you're going to carry over a fairly healthy cash balance to run the county for the first 2 or 3 months before all the money start coming in. Page 8 is road and bridge. Started out in $1,115,000 last year, ended up at $1,257,000. Middle column, we've shown there the money's expected. The special city and county highway money are probably new estimates that the state gives us, probably less than what they were a year ago when I was here. Because of the COVID-19, everybody's driving less, paying less excise tax, so they've reduced their estimates there. So we use those reduced numbers to come up with the money's available. And on the next page, we show the expenses of the road and bridge. And this shows total expenditure authority, $5,876,000. I doubt he'll spend what's in that middle column, and if not, that cash will carry over. So he's typically carrying over $1,200,000 in cash. So I'm showing 721 at the end of the year. It'll likely be a higher number than that. A budget of $5,876,550 is more than normally has ever been spent out of the road and bridge, so that should be sufficient budget. Page 9, your ambulance fund. We're levying about the same dollars in taxes in the previous years, giving it a funding level of $1,019,747. I guess you appropriate that over to the ambulance people. Conservation District, funding them for $31,325. Has a small cash balance in it. Page 10, economic development, showing some expenses budgeted there up to $250,000. That cash balance is kind of dwindling down a little bit. But you should be able to fund the balance as is requested. And I guess if there's any extra money there, like in 19, you transferred it to a risk management reserve fund. So that's why $144,000. That's why the cash balance came down that year. Economic employee benefits at the bottom of the page, giving it a $4,935,000 budget, which is $4,008,000 is what they spent in 19. So try to keep sufficient cushion there in case the health insurance skyrockets up on everybody. And, you know, when that does happen, you're almost 2 years out in order to redo the tax levy to get caught up with it. So you got to keep a pretty good cash balance carrying over to fund any of those things that you might not anticipate. Extension Council on page 11, you normally get $180,000 a year, so we got $185,500 budgeted there. Health Department at the bottom, levying a little bit more tax dollars because the cash balance is going down a little bit. They're giving them a $646,000 budget. Historical Society on the next page, hospital maintenance on the next page. And levying about the same dollars for the hospital maintenance, $1,019,000 expenditure level. Library at the top of the next page, very similar to the prior years. Library employee benefits, again, pretty similar. Mental health on page 14. I'm kind of going through these fast because I presume you've looked at their budgets and approved most of these departments. Intellectual disability, noxious weed on page 15. It has a little bit of cash, pretty good cash balance built up, and some of that all depends upon whether, how much they collect in reimbursed expenses. So we're showing 150,000 last year. They actually collected 173, so that can vary a little bit, which will give them a little more cash. Special bridge, Wayne just caught me as he left. In that middle column, we were showing $1,224,500. He thought he would only end up with about 80,000 cash carryover into 2021. So we need to probably increase those expenses in that 2020 column. Carry over $80,000 cash, which is going to cut that back to 600 and some thousand, which will end up being more. There used to be a $2 million limitation for the special bridge fund. That's out the window several years ago. So he said he was needing probably only $1.5 million maybe in that time.
That's what he said, that's probably what he needed.
I got $1.1 million. So up to you, we may need to shift more dollars into this fund. It's going to come out of the general fund, that's where it's got to come out of.
We'll wait to see what is requested and why, depending on what fund we pull out of, I would assume.
Yeah, this, here, he had a spreadsheet there of this year's bridges and such he's doing. I was thinking he's working on $1.3 million budget though. I got $1.9 million budget. I need to see what he had. Anyway, he said he's only probably going to end up with 80,000 cash at the end of the year. I'm showing 677, so that's $600,000 difference. Quite a bit of difference. And then whatever he wants budgeted for this year. So that's one we'll need to check on and fix. Page 16, special alcohol, special program, parks and recreation. Page 17 is special noxious weed fund. Normally transfer some excess dollars in here for capital outlay. Emergency phone service has been holding its own. Tourism expansion, solid waste at the bottom of page 18. Davis Creek Sewer District, about the same. Page 20 on through the end of that budget are non-budgeted funds of the county that are not required to have a budget. So all we do is show the 2019 activity. And then page 25, we have a little separate budget for rural fire. And this is what rural fire's budget looked like, is $1,038,000 tax levy there, which is last year they levied $1,015,515. Now they can do $1,038,106. Their mill levy's 1.812. Last year 1.859. So their valuation went up. Therefore their mill levy reflects it slowing down. And then we get back to the last page again. So decision you'll need to make is you want to levy what's allowed under the tax lid law, which shows about a $1 million decrease, or cut dollars back and reduce some dollars or mill levy, and then we'll need to shift some monies around out of some of the general fund capital outlay lines to probably special bridge.
Is shifting the special bridge, is that an internal, is that going to affect?
Pardon?
The shifting of the special bridge, that'd be just an internal shift. It won't.
Right,
It won't
yeah.
affect.
We it won't change the overall dollars. We may have to put less in the general fund and more towards special bridge fund. If that's what you want to do. I know he was saying, you know, if he could do 2 bridges a year that are close together, you know, it'll save maybe a couple $100,000 in transportation costs, or if you did 1 bridge here and 1 halfway across the county, you know, moving stuff around. So if they could get a better funding level for special bridge, that'd be helpful.
Can I say something? We've got cancellations here at 11:30 and 11:45. Apparently there's something going on with the sheriff's office, so Randy won't be here. So if we wanted to go on the next item, agenda item, maybe Phil could visit with Wayne and bring him back, and then we could get that figured out.
Yeah, I think I'd like some clarification on that.
We can get him back.
Yeah, that'd be great. And visit with him.
Yeah, let's do that.
He's gonna go somewhere right after this. He had a meeting,
I can check with him.
he had a meeting somewhere right after this.
Well, in your general fund, typically every year, like I said, we try to budget to spend the whole amount if you have to, but you're typically gonna carry over about $3 million in your general fund, closer to 4. So there are some line items in the general fund, some larger capital outlay line items that are kind of catch-all, you know, some equipment, some capital projects, budgets in here. So there's room to shift at least some of that stuff around. Right now, yeah, look on page 7A, in the bottom right-hand corner. Right now, the way this budget is set up, we're levying $15,186,58 into the general fund of next year's tax dollars. And then previous years, it's been closer to 13 million. So there's probably 2 million extra that probably ought to go over a special bridge if you want that in those. That's fine. It should be doable.
He's coming back, so
Okay.
that'll give you time to visit. And if the commission wants to revise the next agenda item, then
Okay,
you can come back.
we can do that.
Oh, Russell has a question.
Mr. Chair, I have a question while the auditor's here. If we have a, I think we, as far as the coronavirus relief fund, I know Angie talked to you and said, you guys said it was a conflict, you guys help administer.
Right.
Can you give us any advice on why we should, or what would the advantages be to have a CPA firm, knowing they could be from out of state? Can you give us a little insight on what advantages that would have for us?
What we recommended counties, we can't do it and then be independent to do the audit, so that, as far as that's, we're out. I'm not sure a CPA firm is necessarily the most qualified to do that kind of thing either, whoever it may be. We have like Southeast Kansas Regional Planning Commission. I don't know if you have some people like that. They administer grants all the time for little cities and such. They know the paperwork, they know the federal compliance, even though the compliance for this thing is totally different. Comes out, it's changing every day. We don't even know exactly what they are. Some stuff come out the other day. But somebody like that would be,
And I
Probably
contacted
yes.
them and they weren't.
South
they didn't want to do it.
They're either too busy or not.
Yeah, they weren't gonna.
I mean, we have several, the pricing is ranging from 45 to 80 grand. And I'm looking through some of the different proposals and I'm just looking for some insight on what to look for, what to try and pick out of those proposals to key on, why to use them or why not to use them. And even if we really, really need to use them because it's,
You don't have to.
I mean, I know Angie did some research and some I've talked to, there's at least 15 or 20 counties that are just gonna do it on their own. I mean, it's one check-in, application process, check out with a signature of a waiver that says we're gonna spend it like we're supposed to spend it. How, I guess one of my questions is how critical is it that you think we use somebody outside and pay them 45?
In your county's case, I don't think it would be critical. I mean, you have adequate accounting record. We've been telling everybody, y'all just put this in a separate bank account, just to be safe. And anybody can look at that bank account, although with fund accounting, you shouldn't have to do that. But with this stuff and not knowing what the legalities are gonna end up being, put it in a separate bank account. That way all the charges to that are very clear when it's being spent for.
And we can pay from a separate bank in our AP
Yeah.
to pull, to pay from that.
She said she got that, we did find that
We
out.
can, yes.
Okay.
And that's what we just have to authorize a new bank account, so.
And so that wouldn't be a problem.
No, just as long as you keep up the reporting and you spend up what you're supposed to, and, you know, try
We
to
would still audit.
have one or two people sign off on everything, and just,
I mean, the applications are gonna come in, they're gonna come to a committee, the committee's gonna figure out how they wanna rate those applications, and then they're gonna make a recommendation to the commission on how they recommend they spend it. And the commission will have a final decision still.
should work.
That would mean that there could be $30,000-$40,000 more that
Yeah.
our people could get instead of going to some.
Yeah, right. We just have some counties that don't have the staff size or maybe the expertise that could handle it, so they're doing it with some other people.
So from your perspective, then it wouldn't be out of line for us to consider just doing it on our own and not hiring an outside person.
Just read your agreement and make sure you follow it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, save the money and go to work.
I don't know if the commission had any other questions, but I had that question. Thought it was just good coincidence that he was here today.
Which means, you know, the size of the money you got this year, next year you'll have a single audit. What that means is there's extra compliance work that has to be done on that particular grant. Anytime you spend more than $750,000 in federal funds, so it's not just that grant, it's any other federal dollars that come through here. When they hit over 750, we have to do a single audit, which is, like I said, additional audit work, a couple of additional reports in the back, some compliance things. They have a compliance supplement generally for each federal program, and basically says what we need to test for. And, so we're expecting that on about every county next year.
Thanks.
This year's been fun with the COVID thing, not really being able to show up and trying to do this thing remotely. It's been hot off the press getting it.
So in our motion, should we add preparation of the 2020 audit, single audit, and the 2022 budget preparation?
It's fine. I think on that single audit, we have an additional $2,500 fee for doing the single audit if it applies. Never has applied here before, so.
Right. So, if you guys want to make the solution.
Well, I didn't know if we needed to wait till we spoke with Wayne.
Oh, yeah, well, this is on audit and this is for accepting the 2019 audit that you just presented. And then retaining auditors, Jared Gilmore and Phillips, for the preparation of the 2020 audit, which will be next year, and single audit and 2022 budget preparation.
Okay, all right. So I have a motion here to move to accept the 2019 audit as submitted.
I'll move.
Bob move, any second?
I'll second.
I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
4-0. So then we have a motion to retain auditors Jared, Gilmore, and Phillips for preparation of the 2020 audit and the 2022 budget preparation,
And add the 2020 single audit in there too.
as well as the 20
20 single audit.
single audit.
Yeah.
We'll add that in, I assume, we'll just retype that.
Yeah.
Need a motion?
So moved.
On the move. I'll second. I can do that, right? Just making sure. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Yes, we'll be back. If y'all need to do that, wherever you want to meet, people upstairs.
When you look through the budget, it will be requested that that's exactly what it said. What the question is.
Well, I'm not sure.
Because when I saw that number, it's like, that was the same as what was requested
I don't know.
in this book. I'm sorry?
We'll get it figured out.
Okay. So, election system software.
So I'm gonna turn this way because this is partially for maybe more so for the public than for the commission. So I think it's important that the public is able to see whoever's watching, whoever may watch later. I'm going to start off and then I'll do the scoot forward. Do a little introduction, but before I do, I've got a couple comments. A popular government without popular information or the means of acquiring it is but a prologue to a farce or a tragedy or perhaps both. Knowledge will forever govern ignorance, and a people who mean to be their own governors must arm themselves with the power of knowledge, the power knowledge gives. That's James Madison. Whenever the people are well informed, they can be trusted with their government, for whenever things go so far wrong as to attract their notice, they can be relied on to set things right. And that's Thomas Jefferson in January 8th, 1789. It's been brought to my attention there are some local concerns related to the integrity of the upcoming election. As a leader within this county, I feel it is a role and duty of mine to help alleviate those type of concerns to the best of my ability. And the way to do that is through transparency. Transparency increases the degree of trust. Transparency is the most powerful solution, the cornerstone of one of the most intangible problems of democratic governance, the increasing distrust of citizens towards the government. Transparency is a strategic responsibility essential to enhance trust in relationships. Transparency creates a climate of trust among people and encourages them to believe more in governments, fostering an environment of openness that allows citizens to control institutions and participate in decision-making. I'm going to start by telling a quick story about my late mother. She is very skeptical of electronics and technology, and so much so she would oftentimes call me before she made a credit card purchase to make sure it was safe. She would have rather use the check, which, mind you, has much more information than a credit card. And the more technology advanced, the more uncomfortable she became. Now, fast forward to present day, I'm reminded of my mother when I think of the upcoming election and the equipment being used in Coffee County and similar equipment being used in many other locations across the country. I think of my mother and how skeptical she would be to use a piece of electronic technology to make a very important decision, to vote. And I picture receiving the call from my mother similar to the call about the credit card with a simple question. Can I trust this equipment? Is it safe? If my mother had these concerns, it might also affect whether she would vote. The guests we have before us today are representatives from Election Systems and Software, ES&S. Chris Curlin, Kansas Account Manager, Tucker Hummel, Solutions Engineer, Angie Fryson, Kansas Sales Manager. They're here today to talk to you a little bit about the equipment, how it works, and to hopefully answer the question I would receive from my mother. Can it be trusted? The first question I would ask before they begin is, how much is it costing the taxpayers of Kansas, or of Coffee County, for each of them to be here today? And once they answer that, I think they'll answer the other question. Can it be trusted? Is it Chris?
Mr. Carl, how are you? Good morning. Good morning. I am the account manager of the state of Kansas, and this is Angie Fryson.
I'm Angie Bryson. I'm the sales manager for the state of Kansas. We have Tucker O'Mell with us as well.
Thanks, guys. Good morning. My name is Tucker O'Mell with Election Systems and Software. I'm a 15-year employee of the company, and I reside in Omaha, Nebraska, as well as Angie and Chris. And to answer that first question, which was how much is it costing for us to be here today, the answer is $0. We're here on our own volition. We're here strictly to speak about election security and help put at ease the minds here of the voters here in Coffee County to ensure that this election and all elections used run with election systems and software technology can be trusted. Okay, so I do have a list of questions here from some members of the public that we will address. But really quickly, I did want to go through 3 stages of an election and talk about how an election run on ESNS equipment can be trusted. So the first stage of any election is the election creation stage. Second is running the election, election day. And the third is post-election. And really briefly, let's walk through those 3. The first stage is building the election. The elections using our equipment are built on single-purpose computers that are not connected to the internet, and the only thing loaded on there is software built by Election Systems and Software, and is reviewed by the Federal Election Assistance Commission, DEAC, and also by the Secretary of State's office here in Kansas. Both levels of certification, both federal and state, have been achieved for the software that is run here in this county and all over Kansas. I do believe it's over 60 counties in Kansas use our tabulation equipment to tabulate their elections, and over 50% of the registered voters in the United States have their ballots counted on ESNS equipment. So we're very proud of both of those facts. So the election programmer, prior to the election, will use that single-use PC running our software known as Electionware to build the election. They will enter in the contests, the candidates, the precincts, all that good information, and then finally they will design the ballot. And as they're designing the ballot, the software places the candidates as entered on the ballot, and then the software tracks where those candidates are placed on the ballot design, and there is no opportunity for the programmer of the election to modify those positions of those candidates. In other words, the software decides this candidate is in this position and knows where that candidate is on every single ballot style throughout the election, and it is going to look in that spot and that spot only for a vote for that candidate. I cannot reiterate enough that the election programmer cannot modify those directions. It is not a feature of the system. So as they're building the election, they lay out the ballot, the system knows exactly where every candidate is, and at the end of the election programming stage, right before election day, traditionally jurisdictions around the country run a logic and accuracy test to verify that the ballots programmed for this election match with all the election coding and that the expected results match with the pre-established test. Moving on to election day, after the election is programmed, all the data that's going to be loaded into the machine out of your polling places is loaded onto encrypted proprietary USB thumb drives. The USB thumb drives we use are the only ones that will be recognized by ESNS equipment. In other words, if you go to Office Max or Office Depot and buy a USB drive and insert it into our equipment, it will immediately be not recognized. Only sticks used provided by our company are the ones that can be used in our machines. The election data for this election and this election only is loaded on those USB drives, and they are transported, before they're transported, they're loaded into the ESNS equipment, at which point they are locked and sealed in there. So there's a physical barrier. No one can access these devices on election day. Traditionally, it's a wire seal or a tape seal that's placed over the top. Now, that's physical security. But what I said earlier about encryption is just as important as that physical security, even more so, I would argue. Because the data that's loaded on there, yes, it's for this election, it's specific to this election, but it's encrypted. If somebody got a hold of that USB drive and says, hey, I'm going to mess with the information that's on here, I'm going to try to flip some votes, they could plug it into a PC, and that data is unaccessible to them because, again, it is encrypted. And for those who don't know, encryption is basically, it is scrambling the data that's been on there so it cannot be altered without the encryption key. So the encryption key is the method of which the data on the stick is scrambled. And if you had the key, you could look at that information. But the important point about encryption is to have so many keys that for somebody to go through and just try every key to unlock that information, they would go through so many of those keys that it makes it an effort and futility. The number of keys in our library is over 115 quatuor vigintilia. It is a number that's 78 digits long. If you think about commas after every three numbers, hundreds, thousands, millions, billions, trillions, quadrillions. This is 24 of those number sets. I read somewhere that if somebody got a hold of one of these sticks and they really wanted to mess with Coffee County's election, and they wanted to decrypt the information, so they're going to start trying keys. This is what's known as a brute force attack. So they're just going to go through all the keys, and they're going to figure out which one it is. And they had a supercomputer that was going to do this for them. And that supercomputer could process 4 quadrillion keys per second. I want you to think about that. 4 quadrillion keys per second. 4 quadrillion, 8 quadrillion, 12 quadrillion. And they started doing this 12 billion years ago. Today, they would be through less than 1% of the keys. Okay? I tell you this not to bore you to tears. I tell you this just to help you understand that the information that's loaded on these USB drives as they're sent out in the world and as they come back with the results on election day, they can be trusted. This is a virtual lockbox. Just like your tabulators and your ESNS equipment are physical lockboxes, the information on those sticks is also very, very trustable. So the election happens. During the election here in Coffee County, I believe you use the express vote tabulator. The express vote tabulator is a device where the voter uses a touchscreen to make their selections. It prints the ballot out on a card, and the voter physically holds their ballot in their hand and reviews the selections that are on that card. Then it is reinserted back in the machine, and that's where the tabulation occurs. All right? The ballots are dropped into a locked and sealed ballot container on the back of the machine that also, again, has its own locks and seals, and it cannot be detached from the machine by the voter. And at the end of the day, the polls close, and those same USB drives that the software sent out in the world, those same ones come back. And the software will only recognize those sticks again that it programmed. Those are the only ones that will recognize when they come back. So the polls are closed, the USB drives come back, and all the election results are uploaded into a central computer for aggregation, which gives you the countywide results. It's important to note, at the polling place, every single one of those tabulators has the ability to not only produce the USB drive that has the encrypted results on it, it also has a results tape which summarizes all of the tabulated results within that polling place. And there is a physical ballot. This is key. There's a physical ballot that every voter produces and holds in their hand. It is a physical record showing exactly their wishes for who they wanted to vote for. Okay? So election night, all the results are uploaded to the central computer, and now let's move on to post-election. Post-election, how can we verify that this election was actually run with integrity and that the results are accurate and trustable? Well, you have those physical ballots, but also it's important to note that those tabulators take a picture of every single ballot, front and back, and they also produce what's known as a cast vote record, or CVR. The cast vote record is essentially a report which summarizes exactly how that individual ballot was tabulated by the machine. And hopefully that makes sense. If you have 500 ballots that ran through that machine, you have 500 ballots, you have 500 digital images of those ballots, and you have 500 cast vote records. When the results come into that central computer, those 500 images and the 500 cast vote records, you can pull up any one at random and say, I want to look at ballot number 47. Up pulls the ballot, up pulls the cast vote record, both on the screen simultaneously, and you can just look on the ballot and say, it looks like they voted for candidate B. Over here, yep, tabulated candidate B. You move down the line, and if you wanted to, you could go through every single ballot cast here in this county, and you could review how they were tabulated. But if you don't trust digital information, that's fine. You can always go back to the original ballots themselves. I believe there are about 6,000 registered voters here in this county. If everybody casts a ballot, you have 6,000 physical ballots that is absolutely key. They have held those ballots in their hand, and they have reviewed and made sure this is exactly who I want to vote for. Those 6,000 could be hand tabulated to compare against the electronic tabulation of the equipment to verify the accuracy. Most jurisdictions in the country run a post-election audit. I'm not a Kansas election law expert, but I do believe that here in Kansas they mandate there is a post-election audit that occurs where a series of ballots are hand counted and compared against the original result. But I'm here to tell you that if you wanted to expand that, that can absolutely be done. This is why all the facts that I've put forward to you today is why I believe that ESNS equipment can absolutely be trusted in the upcoming election and every election run here in this county. Might I go through the questions now from the public? And several of them can be answered together. What programming can be changed in the machines? Can machines be programmed to count every other vote or votes for one candidate to another candidate? What kind of quality and independent verification is done for programming? And how is the verification documented? Those are all kind of grouped together, so I'll answer them together. So what programming can be changed in these machines? Once the election is programmed and written to those USB drives, nothing can be changed. That's the answer. Once that machine, that election is sent out in the world and the pre-election testing has occurred, the programming cannot be changed. Can the machine be programmed to count every other vote? No, it absolutely can't. I told you where the candidates are placed on the ballot, which the tabulators know exactly where they are. You cannot say, you know what, every third time someone votes for candidate B, go ahead and throw that vote to candidate A, or just ignore it. That simply is not a function of the system. And if somebody was a computer scientist and wanted to change the data that's programmed on those sticks to change it, well, I'm not going to go into that again because that was a long portion of the presentation. But the information on there can be trusted, and those candidate positions cannot be modified. What kind of quality and independent verification is done for the programming to change, for programming the changes in the machines? The quality and independent verification start at the federal and state certification level, where they not only test the equipment and the software to Kansas and federal standards, but also every single line of code, the base code that is written that becomes our software, every single line is reviewed by the EAC to make sure that there are no, there's no malevolent code in there. And how is the verification documented? I believe that's with your logic and accuracy testing. I mean, the verification of the election is the logic and accuracy testing that takes place before the election. All right, do the new machines capture the voting on paper or memory chips? It interprets what's on the paper and saves those results to memory chips. But again, the official record of the election is the ballots themselves. The tabulators are there just to facilitate speedy tabulation and reporting of the election. Because we all want the election, the results by 10 p.m., right? The 10 p.m. news on election night, we all want the results very, very quickly. Our machines actually expedite that and allow you to see the results faster. Some counties in the country still hand count. They don't use machines. The accuracy of our machines has proven that they are equal to or better than the hand count. Once voting is started, how are changes to the machines prevented? Again, that's through the digital encryption and also the physical security that's placed on the machines, wire seals and tape seals. Is there an electronic record of all changes made to the programming? I'd like to thank the public for this question. It's a very good one. Both the software and the tabulators keep a digital audit log of every single action taken throughout the election. In the software, before someone has access to the software, they need to have they need to have login credentials and their own password. Once they log in, the software is tracking every single action they take. Doesn't matter how small. It says, I opened up this module, I performed this action. It says, this person performed this action at exactly this time, recorded by date, hour, minute, and second. And that running audit log cannot be deleted or modified, and in fact, it can be published. And the tabulators themselves keep track of every single action taken on election day to keep their own internal log. Those can be printed physically from the machine, and they are also available back in the software once all the results have been aggregated. All those audit logs can be, they're now in a searchable database. They can be printed, they can be searched. All of those actions are there, and again, they cannot be modified. How are voting numbers captured, and then can they be erased? Again, the ballot is inserted in the machine. Digitally, it scans the ballot, identifies the candidates that have been voted for, and those results are saved to the encrypted thumb drive. How can they be erased? Those, well, off the ballot, they obviously can't be erased. Individual entries on that USB thumb drive and in the election database after they have been activated, they cannot be deleted. All right? It's just as simple as that. I would say that in the next election, to save voters, the taxpayers' money, those USB drives are recycled for the next election. 6 months down the road, maybe a year down the road, those USB drives are used again. But they are reformatted and they are only inserted into that certified election computer that is not connected to the internet. Can part of the votes be erased, or is the erase command programmed to erase all voting? Again, I talked about individual votes cannot be erased. And the erase command, the only erase command, again, is when you start working on your next election. You're done with the primary and you move on to the general. Those USB drives will be reused. However, the software has a algorithm that goes through to format the stick writes the data for the new election, encrypts the data, and then digitally signs that data. So there's 4 stages of preparation there that automatically happens by the software as you move to that second election. All right, so that's the information I had to deliver to you today. What questions might you have?
I have a question that's very interesting because I had no idea how that worked. Very interesting.
Thank you. We conduct security seminars for all over the country. We traditionally ask all the counties that are ES&S customers within an individual state, hey, come to a central location. We usually give a 4 to 8 hour seminar on this. So we could go on for a while. In fact, my coworkers will attest that it's hard for me to condense this down so quickly. But there's a lot more behind the scenes here. There's a lot of good information there, but thank you for the comment. Are there any other questions? Anybody else?
Appreciate you coming in and doing a great job of explaining everything that our citizens need to have answers for.
Thank you. The citizens here in this county can't trust the results.
They should be totally convinced after listening to this.
Well, thank you.
And I've got a follow-up question. In the post-audit process, and I may not state this exactly the right way, sure, but if there is an issue that comes up in that post-audit when you're comparing the physical ballot to the electronic ballot, what's the process and protocol with your equipment in that post-audit process?
Sure. And I'll speak in general terms again because I'm not well versed with Kansas audit. I will tell you that I travel the country. I've worked in about 30 states over the last 2 years. And we've talked about a lot of different election audits around the country. And generally speaking, what happens with an audit is that they have a mandatory start of the audit if any anomalies are observed, such as, oh, this ballot says they voted for candidate A, but it was tabulated for candidate B. If one or more anomalies is identified, then traditionally the audit expands. And they say, all right, now we're going to have to go and expand that by 2-3 more %. And if more anomalies are found, then it expands. And eventually, if a series of anomalies or so many are found, then you are going to hand count the entire county. I have one of the counties I work out west in, the state of Utah. We have 27 of the 29 counties that tabulate on ES&S equipment. And they actually perform what's known as the risk limiting audit. I won't go into that in too much detail, but just know they pick out individual ballots at random. And they look at the image and they look at the cast vote record to verify accuracy. One county had 600 ballots to go through and they performed their audit about 25 minutes with 100% accuracy. And a couple of years later, I asked them, hey, how many anomalies have you ever found? And they laughed. They said, oh, Tucker, we've never found a single anomaly in the state of Utah, ever. In the last 2 years since we've used the ES&S equipment, nobody has ever expanded to a second round or found one single error. Now, I don't realize what I tell you here is it's an anecdote, it's a story, but it was very powerful to hear them with that story. Other questions?
And that was going to be, I guess, the next one, the error rate, if you've had any errors and what does that look like? If so, but I don't know if you haven't.
I could not speak to that. I don't know about a national error rate. I believe our tabulators are the most technologically sound in the world, quite honestly. We have 2 patented scanning algorithms inside of all of our tabulation devices that correct for anomalies, such as like when a voter, instead of they mail in a ballot, instead of filling in the oval completely, maybe they put a check mark or an X. We actually have algorithms inside of our scanners that look for those exact situations. So the voter doesn't have to necessarily fill in the entirety of the oval. If they put a traditional human mark, like a line through that oval, that'll count. Yeah. So we're very proud of our scanning technology. Anything else?
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
So just to follow up on that presentation, KSA 22-4411 is one of the voting tabulation equipment statutes here in Kansas. And I bring it up just so the public's aware, they can look at that statute and Part of what that talks about is what happens prior to the election. The vote tabulation equipment may be located at any place within the county approved by the election officer. Here's the important part. Within 5 days prior to the date of election, the county election officer shall have the automatic tabulating equipment tested to ascertain that the equipment will correctly count the votes cast for all offices and on all questions submitted. Public notice of the time and place of the test shall be given at least 48 hours prior thereto by publication once in a newspaper of general circulation in the county or city where such equipment is to be used. The test shall be open to representatives of the political parties, candidates, the press, and the public. So that's the invitation to the public. If they want to see how that process works, they want to be a part of that process, there's a mechanism and a way to do that. Second statute, KSA 25-4414. Electronic or electromechanical voting system fraud is being in unlawful or unauthorized possession of voting equipment, computer programs, operating systems, firmware, software, ballots, or intentionally tampering with, altering, disarranging, defacing, impairing, or destroying any electronic or electromechanical system or component, part thereof, or any ballot used by such systems. That is a severity level 9 felony in Kansas. It's taken very seriously, and if there's any violation, those individuals will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. KSA 25-4611, that is the statute that deals with the procedure when the polls are closed, the comparison count, ballots to counting location, public counting, manual count, when and how that whole process works. And I won't read that one, but what I will go into is one of the more recent additions to the election laws is KSA 25-3009, which is the post-election audit of votes cast, which is sort of what Tucker referenced several minutes ago. And in that statute, it discusses the following. The county election officer shall conduct a manual audit or tally of each vote cast, regardless of the method of voting in 1% of all precincts, with a minimum of 1% located within the county. The precincts shall be randomly selected, and the selection shall take place after the election. The audit shall be performed manually and show review of all paper ballots selected pursuant to subsection A. The audit shall be performed by a sworn election board consisting of bipartisan trained board members. The audit will review contested races in presidential election years, one federal race, one state legislative race, and one county race. At least 5 days prior to the audit, notice of the time and location of the audit shall be provided to the public on the official county website. The audit shall be conducted in a public setting. Any candidate or entity who is authorized to appoint a poll agent may appoint a poll agent for the audit. The results of the audit shall be compared to the unofficial election night results, and a report shall be submitted to the county election office and to the Secretary of State's office prior to the meeting of the County Board of Canvassers. There's further direction, and I'm not going to read it, but just so if somebody wants to look it up. The Kansas Administrative Regulations has an audit implementation section, and that's in section 7-47-1. I'd invite anybody to take a look at each and every one of these statutes. And this is, there's a lot to it, but I think in those several statutes that have been cited, there's a lot of information, and transparency is the key here. If anybody wants to be involved, the public, candidates, anybody who's involved in the process or wants to be involved, there's a mechanism and a way for that to occur. So I think that covers the issues, and I think if my mother were here to listen to this presentation, I think she would feel a little more comfortable, but she would still be skeptical, which I understand. But my mother was born in the 1940s when They didn't have all the electronical media that we have today. And that's where we are. So,
Thank you, Wade. Thank you, Wade.
that's what I was-
Thanks again for coming.
Thank you very much.
Now we're back to Wayne and Jared. Two.
Haven't actually physically got those corrections in there yet, but just generically.
Well, when I go back to budget request, it matches what you have, so.
In 2021 column?
Mhm.
Yeah, it will. Go back to page 15, which is that special bridge fund. Okay, in that middle column, in that 2020 column on special bridge, down towards the bottom, we got 1,224,500. That was basically last year's budget without a huge amount for capital outlay. But in talking with Wayne, he's on schedule to spend 1,601,706 in place of 1,224,500, which leaves 300,000 to carry over in place of 677. His budget for this year that we're in now is on that bottom line, 1,955,000. So he's got plenty of budget authority. He's going to carry over 300,000 and spend 1,006,000. So what we need to do is carry in 300,000 at the top of the 21 column. And then he was wanting to build up that fund. I don't think we can probably do it all at once, but try to build that up to where he has 1,005,000 cash carryover. He's had that, I guess, in the past, but it's going to dip it down quite a bit this year with this projects you got going on, I guess.
Yeah.
So my suggestion was where we have 1,000,001 for the budget, put in a pretty good chunk for capital outlay and get that up to 2,600,000 and take 1,005,000 out of other places. Now, that sounds bad, taking 1,005,000 out of the general fund, but I think there's some things on the revenue side of the general fund that I don't have in the budget. In talking with the treasurer, there's 479,000 of wind farm money sitting in an agency fund that hasn't been transferred to general yet. So there's 479,000 that needs to come into general in 2020 that I don't have in your numbers. So there's where a third of it's going to come from. And then I think there's some underestimates maybe on the interest income line items, could be a little bit more of it. And then the rest would be actually shifting the mill levy from general to special bridge. Special bridge, if we did that way, would go from a 0.76 mil to 2.624, and the general fund would come down that 1.9. So it's just a matter of shifting those dollars. And you'd still be levying as many dollars in the general fund as what it was before, because right now I got more going to the general fund than everywhere else than the previous years. Clear as mud, I know. But given a little bit more time, I can make those changes and reprint it and you can look at it again. But overall, it's going to be the same bottom line number.
Does the internal numbers matter if we approve this with the same bottom line?
You can approve it with those revisions. I'll get the revisions back to you. You can put another pair of eyes on it, just to be sure, but the total dollars are not going to change. So whatever's in that wind farm pilot money needs to come over to the general fund in 2020, and then you'll get new money in for next year.
Is any part of that, Angie, goes to the schools like we've done?
Yes.
Any part of
That part of it's already been dispersed.
That part's been dispersed.
We just didn't bring across anything in 19.
I was thinking that,
2 years
I was
old.
thinking that was already done.
Yeah, we just went through that.
Do we need to move to accept the budget as presented with the following corrections? What time frame does that need to be done?
You can approve it for publication. I can get the changes back to Angie. The notice of budget hearing, that back page will go in the newspaper. And then at the budget hearing itself, you'll actually decide. At that time, you can lower dollars if you want to levy less dollars. You can lower them, you can't raise them. If we publish it the way we got it, you're at the tax lid maximum anyway. So once you publish, you can't raise dollars. Even if you cut more dollars out today than you published it, you can't raise them back up to the maximum limit. So this is probably the safest way to go, publish it and then have your hearing.
So once again, do we need to approve that today?
Oh, I'm
You
sorry.
would have to approve it for publication as
I
revised.
so moved to accept the budget as presented
Okay. With the revisions?
with the revisions that have been discussed.
And I second that.
Don moved, Fred seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Okay.
4-0.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you.
Bill, did you put a publication date on that?
Oh,
Or budget hearing, I mean?
there is, and make sure that date's what you want.
Oh, yeah, August 10th at 10:30?
Yeah.
Okay,
Does that work?
that'll work.
I'll go back and make those changes and email them to you.
Okay,
It's easier doing it at my desk than it is in my lap.
yeah.
We had some revisions on Randy too.
I don't know what round is coming.
He's not gonna be here, but he did provide copies of the personnel services. a difference of 60,000 from his previous number he gave us to now.
Mhm.
So I can get that number to Phil.
You know, Angie, there's a one line item, total PT hours,
Part-time?
and that is, see, that wasn't in the first budget.
Well, they use the, if I can answer that, they use the CP5 form, which is what we use for raises in April. And I told them that they're making it way too confusing using that form, so that we needed just to see something simple like this.
These increased, the first FT, I'm sorry, the overtime is going to 37.9, and a week ago it was at 21. The
That was
full-time
just for the
hours-
remainder of the year.
Full-time hours is 18 over what was projected a week ago, so.
Right, well,
The total adjustment increases of 70, which gets it in line.
if I can explain that, on that CP5 form, that's a projected overtime for the remainder of the year. So it looks like they've given us a full year of overtime, which is what they need to budget.
You know, we asked that, or I did here a year ago or 2 years ago, you know, they do their spreadsheet shows 75% of the year.
Right.
Why can't they do that annually like all the other departments do it? That way it'd be consistent with all the other.
That's the way the form is made. I mean,
All we gotta do is
everybody,
change the format, that way everything will be consistent.
Yeah.
I'll visit with Randy a little bit.
all departments do it this way, that's how
I'm
this
sorry?
form, all departments do it this way, that's how the form is set up.
But all departments do it on an annual basis, where they do it on 8 months out of the year.
Now, they're using the exact same form we are. If you look at that CP5,
That's what I'm looking at.
right,
It says total wages, $916,587. And then they add the other 4 months, which is January, February, March, and April.
right. If you work through that whole formula, I mean, I created the formula, it used to be done by hand.
Yeah.
And I created the formula set up in Excel because it made things a lot more simpler for everybody. So it does capture the whole year, but it captures it before the increase and then the remainder with after the increases.
So, Mr. Chairman, it appears that everything, you've got everything pretty well balanced out.
That pretty much completes our agenda. Correct. So we can do round table if Wade's got anything.
I just want to remind, and I don't know if we need to physically put it on the agenda, but the policy updates for the personnel policy, the purchasing policy that got handed out some time ago, and then probably the most important one in my mind is the CCTV, the cameras in the courthouse or courthouse property that needs to be reviewed and end up in the manual so that internally and externally, everybody's aware of what's out there, how many cameras. They want to request something under an open records request for that information, that, there's not cameras in bathrooms and people aren't, those type of things. And I think that's important. So The only other thing, and this is more, I'm trying to be a leader in this courthouse, a leader in the community, and, some may think I'm doing an okay job, some may think I'm not, but I can only do the best I can. One of the things that I want, and I'm going to read another thing, and this is attributed to Socrates, but I don't know if it actually is attributed to Socrates or not, but it's called the Socrates triple filter test. Keep this in mind the next time you are about to repeat a rumor or spread gossip. In ancient Greece, Socrates was widely lauded for his wisdom. One day, an acquaintance ran up to him excitedly and said, "Socrates, do you know what I just heard about Diogenes?" "Wait a moment," Socrates replied. "Before you tell me, I'd like you to pass a little test. It's called the triple filter test." "Triple filters?" asked the acquaintance. "That's right," Socrates continued. "Before you talk to me about Diogenes, let's take a moment to filter what you are going to say. The first filter is truth. Have you made absolutely sure what you are about to tell me is true?" "No," the man said. "Actually, I just heard about it." "All right," said Socrates. "So you don't really know if it's true or not. Now let's try the second filter, the filter of goodness. Is what you are about to tell me about Diogenes something good?" "No, on the contrary." "So," Socrates continued, "if you want to tell me something about Diogenes that may be bad, even though you're not certain it's true." The man shrugged, a little embarrassed. Socrates continued, "You may still pass the test, though, because there is a third filter, the filter of usefulness. Is what you want to tell me about Diogenes going to be useful to me?" "No, not really." "Well," concluded Socrates, "if what you want to tell me is neither true nor good nor even useful, why tell it to me or anyone at all?" The man was bewildered and ashamed. The moral of the story is truth, goodness, and usefulness. And I think that needs to occur in this building and outside the building. And I need to practice what I preach, but the Socrates triple filter test is maybe something we all need to keep in mind. Anytime we think or consider repeating a rumor or spreading gossip. So. That's all I got.
You
I do. So tomorrow we'll sign checks and balances at 9, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I have the canvass for the 2020 primary election scheduled for Monday, August 17th at 9:30. Just kind of getting that out there so that you guys are aware when that's coming up. And the last thing, I guess I would just kind of let this be known to the public. So we have advanced voting currently still underway in the clerk's office. And it's every day, Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. And it will end at noon on Monday, August 3rd. I'd like to encourage any citizen that would like to get out and vote to go ahead and come in and do that. It's an easy, fast process. And possibly it will avoid lines or waiting to vote early and maybe helping with social distancing and all that. Currently, we've had close to 200 citizens vote in advance, which I think in this type of election is outstanding. And that's all I have today. So,
Angie, back to tomorrow. We had a man pass away. Got a visitation in the cemetery at 11 o'clock. Is everybody can be here tomorrow where I could skip out for 30, 40 minutes? I'll be here. Okay. Will that work, Angie?
should.
And I could look at it afterwards. I mean, I can come back in afterwards.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
This deal happened a couple weeks ago. The date is tomorrow, so.
Good.
Yeah, about a month ago, I think it was before the meeting, Tom and Angie and Donna were here. and I said that I'd be gone next week, the week of the 3rd. And so I just wanted to remind everybody that I would be gone.
Okay. Anything else?
No, not me. No.
For me, I think Wade's last speech was a good one we should all probably listen to those words very closely. There is a lot of white noise out there, I like to call it. A lot of everything going on, if you will, in and out of this courthouse. Originated long before Wade and I got here, or before Dawn, so. Just wanted to reiterate what Wade has gave us, and just everybody take those words at heart. So, and thank everyone for their concerns about my daughter. She's doing well. I'm so happy. Donna?
The Goldberg meeting was
Canceled.
canceled.
Okay.
And it's been moved to Wednesday, the 29th at 9 a.m.
I should
So
be
I
around.
think Tom will be able to attend that.
Okay, that's, okay. Is there any problem with both of us attending that?
As long as it's not a violation of the open meeting.
Okay, and that's at the 29th?
Yes, at 9 a.m. in this room.
I think in the current state of our commission, maybe one will probably be the best. That would be my suggestion.
Okay, that's fine. Don, Wade said one.
We'll move it to 1 o'clock?
No, one person.
Okay,
My suggestion is we just have one.
okay. All right, I'll skip out then.
Everybody? We'll adjourn at 11:49. That clock's not right at all.
Good job, Tom.